Hi there everybody and welcome to episode 11 of Life in Sport, and today we're going to talk about self-starters, people who have started something on their own and begun a business in the sport industry in Ireland. And I'm delighted to be joined by the founder of HerSport, Niamh Tallon. Niamh, you're very welcome to Life in Sport.
Thanks really for having me on. Looking forward to having a chat.
You're very welcome. I'm delighted to have you, Niamh, because I get asked a lot of the time about how to get into sport and how did you do and what did you do in college and how did you meet people and how did you know people and what are the routes in and how hard is it? But actually, you kind of carved something out for yourself in HerSport, and it's gone from strength to strength, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But I'd love to know your background first of all. Go way back to when you were a kid. Were you into sport? Were you mad into it? Did you play a lot of different sports?
I've personally always been involved in sport, and to be fair, like in my house, both my parents were involved, and my brother and sister also participate in sport as well. So it's definitely something I've been exposed to a lot. Never really considered it as a potential occupation or anything like that. I guess it didn't, like the love I had for sport didn't necessarily, I didn't feel like there was opportunity in it, or there was nothing that I was exposed to that I thought like, oh yeah, that could be me in the future. And then obviously it is now, so it's funny how things go.
So did you play team sports or individual sports? What was your background?
Predominantly involved in swimming. I would have played team sports, I guess, towards the end of secondary school and that, more for the laugh, but I would have taken swimming relatively seriously from about 11 or 12. So for me, I guess I have an understanding of maybe more individual sports than some of the team sports. My hand-eye coordination's not great, so I stood away from some of those.
You obviously have that discipline as well, though, because one of my really good friends when I was growing up took swimming really seriously, went to swimming before school, all of those training sessions, and there's a real learning there when you're that age, just around discipline and minding yourself and being organized and all of those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think from the time that I was 11, like I was swimming before school and that, and like it's a lot to take on really as someone that's 11 or 12 years old, and the amount of training that you're doing, and it's to manage that in school, and then a lot of people are involved in like other sports, like I say, kind of for the fun. I guess that team element of it and that. So yeah, like discipline, teamwork, communication, like all those things. Like there's so much that you can take from being involved in sport. But yeah, it is a lot, but there's so much that can be gotten from it, and also I think like you have to force yourself into a routine, because like you've so much to do with training that if you don't organize yourself for school and that, like it's just things that might start to fall apart a little bit.
So when you got to the point then when you finished school and people started saying, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up, and where are you going to go to college, and what are you going to do, and you said you didn't see any avenues. And that's true, for a lot of us. There wasn't a huge amount of visibility there for roles in sport. So what did you decide to do straight after school?
Yeah, I guess like in sport, when you think about it, like you probably look at coaching, and to be honest, in Ireland, like there's not that many paid coaching opportunities. So if you're not going to go down that route, and if you plan on leaving Ireland, like there's kind of few and far between in that respect. I went into business, so I studied commerce in UCD. Had no kind of intention of involving sport in it. Like I would have been looking at other opportunities there, and I guess I did a master's in digital marketing, and kind of at that time had been considering actually doing a PhD and exploring kind of some of the reasons behind the lack of visibility of women in sport, maybe some of the lack of opportunities that are there. And to be honest, there were so many different things that I wanted to explore. And then you're talking to people about doing a PhD, and they're like, okay, so you can't actually kind of run a project or like do anything really to change it until third year. And I was like, all right. I was like, but that seems like a lot of time to put into like the research side of things, when I was like, well, maybe I could just actually start writing about it and making a change now. It just seemed like something that was going to take so long, when I was like, well, why don't I just start writing about it now and actually like make a change and give people coverage and visibility and that. So it just kind of started as a project like that. That really was HerSport. I started during my master's. I literally just writing articles. I set up the Instagram and everything. I guess like there was no fear in terms of like social media and that, because like that's what I was studying, that's what my background was, and I was like, right, we'll just see how it goes. So yeah, that was the start of it really.
Okay, so you actually started it out while you were still doing your digital marketing masters.
Yeah.
So you obviously come from that side of the business. Then you come from knowing how to market something, knowing how to promote it, and knowing how to make things happen. Did you have a role, like a paid job that you had to leave at any point to take a risk on HerSport? Like, did you have to make that leap? Yeah.
Yeah. So like initially I had started during the masters, and there's a lot to do. Like, you think about the money that you can make and all this kind of thing, but like really to make it a sustainable business, like you're talking about paying people, you're talking about all the like added costs. Like there's a lot that really goes into it. So just making enough for a salary for one person is not going to pay for the business to run. And so I hadn't really decided like what was going to work at that time. I actually ended up going over to New York, and I was working over there for a while, and trying to run HerSport on site, and it was like quite difficult because I wasn't here meeting people, wasn't able to go to events, time difference, and then just like I was working over there and just like living in New York, so it was kind of hard to juggle doing that as well. So then when I was coming home, the decision, I always felt like while I was over there a little bit, I was like, you're missing out on, something that you started like, a year and a half ago, like as a project. I think you're missing out on really trying to launch it and be successful with it. So the decision when I came home was to really give it a go, and it was actually kind of the deadline really on it was the Olympics, which was then obviously pushed out a year. So I had left full-time work, and there were other opportunities that arose for me in terms of paid positions and that, and I just decided to give it a chance and give the opportunity to see what could happen with it.
So what were you doing in New York then?
I'm a marketing director in a hair salon, so totally different.
Oh wow, that is different, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like managing brands, so it was like managing the hair salon itself, and then there's a couple of products and stuff that I was, in charge of running and that type of thing. So, like familiar with like products and positioning and that type of thing. But I think in terms of other experience that I've had, kind of ties into what I'm doing now, and a lot of it is quite similar in terms of social media. And I guess like what I find actually with HerSport is the community that we've built is like totally different to something like a hair salon or like a product. Like people really buy into like what we're doing, they really support what we're doing, and the interaction is just like totally different. Like I used to watch the Instagram sometimes on like the hair salon or some of those products just like drop. Like if you don't post for a couple of days, because like I had like there's so many different things that I did, so you might not post every day, and you literally just see people unfollow you. Where that just like doesn't happen with HerSport, like because people are genuinely interested in like what we do, what we stand for, and that type of thing. So I don't have little like panics later being like, oh my gosh, the followers are going down, which is nice.
That's mad. Yeah, it's obviously just a different type of person that's following HerSport.
Yeah.
So how did the marketing background then help you take? Because it's a huge leap that you took. Like, you're kind of playing it down there, saying, "Oh yeah, I just decided to give it a go," but like, it's not secure, and it's your idea, so you are completely responsible for it. So you must have felt some sort of confidence in your ability. So what I'm wondering is, how important has the marketing background been to being able to launch something like this?
Yeah. To be honest, I guess what I would say is probably more important is the understanding of business. And like I wouldn't say that I know everything about business. Like I absolutely don't. And like from my perspective, in terms of like advertising and marketing and everything, like there's so much that I'm learning along the way. But on both sides of my family, like they are self-employed and have been through, as long as I remember, everybody in my family has had a business. So I guess I've always seen that. And I guess the point that I'm in my life at the moment as well, like my responsibilities in that are not massive. So it's when you just have yourself to worry about, you can kind of take that risk, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't, and then I would go back and get a job if required. Luckily, we're not at that point, and everything seems to be going okay so far. But I've been exposed to that as a child, and I guess I understand. I guess some of the important things in terms of like making sure that there is like enough money being generated and looking at the like long-term picture, and then the marketing, I guess, complements that, understanding obviously what we're doing. There is like there has been like a cry out for and like a want for increased coverage of women's sport. I've looked at it in the US, in the UK, in Australia. Like there is increasing coverage like globally on women in sport, and people are talking about it. Like they want more support for female athletes. Like it's not just the coverage, it's like that they're, afforded more opportunities and everything. So yeah, I just knew that somebody was going to do that sometime, so I was going to give it a go, and if it worked, that would be great. So yeah, that's I guess really the start of it all.
I admire your bravery. I admire your blind faith. I was not raised with that blind faith. I was raised by two teachers who had very solid jobs, and then they retired and they were grand. So yeah, I wouldn't have been exposed to that kind of like entrepreneurial spirit. And I do think that has made a huge difference for you, because you didn't go into it kind of, it wasn't the fear of the unknown as much as it would have been for someone like me. Yeah. So yeah, that's brilliant. So how did it start then? I mean, you said you had this idea when you were in the middle of your master's, and the 20 by 20 movement was happening around the same time. So, I mean, there was obviously a very receptive environment for it. So how did you actually begin? Was the Instagram page first? Was there a website before that? Did you just start writing and posting, or how did you actually execute your plan?
I don't think there was a plan, to be honest.
See, I'm lost. I am such a planner and an organizer, and everything has to have. Hats off to you. I just wouldn't be able for that.
No, I do remember having like a few A4 pages, and like, because I had been looking at the PhD and what the options were, I do remember having like different topics, and like having looked at even like I was looking at like some of the like advertising and stuff, and like how are women perceived in advertising of clothing or games and tournaments and that. And like a lot of times it has improved since then. But in terms of like advertising of like sports clothing and stuff, it oftentimes like it wasn't athletes. And I was like, why is that? And like, trying to explore all of like those other like bits and pieces with it in terms of like body image, like all that. Like, there's so much in it. So I had all these A4 pages with loads of things written all over them. And then I was like, okay, well, if we just start writing about it and see what like can change. So I would imagine, I think what happened was I just like created the website and the Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, like probably all in one day. I think it's not like the accounts were set up. It doesn't mean that they were active like all the time. And then literally just started writing about it. Get a good laugh when we look at the original logo, and that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's what was being used.
Oh really? I'll have to go back now and look at it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, the colors are still pretty similar, but like what we have is much cleaner now. I actually did try to move away from the colors, but couldn't find something that I liked as much. So yeah, I have kind of stuck with the pink and blue. But that was it. Just like writing. Like, to be honest, that summer, like it was just before the summer of 2018, and there was like some brilliant results. Like I remember, I think it was the under 18 or under 19 athletics team were doing really well. Sarah Healy was running really well. It might have been the summer of that one of the relays that got silver. So there was just so much going on. The Europeans, like Kieran McGean was running really well. There's just so much. There was a lot in athletics in that particular summer. So it's just about writing about some of the sports that were happening, and then from there building on it. So there are some sports that I personally would be quite aware of what's going on. So that was kind of the easy place to start. It was like, okay, let's start writing about these particular sports, and then adding on to that. So there's the team has expanded. There's it's nice. There's people that want to get involved because they like believe in like what HerSport stands for and want to support it and everything. So people just like writing about different sports and what they're passionate about and that kind of thing. And then we're like trying to write about some more I guess that like other issues, like such as like the perception of women in sport, or like those like the body image things that we're talking about. Like there's so much in that, and not just necessarily be reporting on it, but also to cover some of these topics that might be considered reasons for girls or women to drop out of sport, or taboo topics like talk about periods and menstrual cups and shaving and all that kind of thing. Like we did a shaving video on Instagram TV that I think has had the most views of all the Instagram TV videos that we've had, and it's literally myself and two teammates like just talking about shaving, and that's all it is. And it's just actually about making these conversations normal. And they seem like small things, and like I think when you get through your teenage years and you make it out the other side, you forget about some of these things. You're like, oh, it doesn't matter to me anymore. But for someone that's 11, 12, 13, 14, like they are things that they worry about, and like you have to get used to training your period and like trying to figure all that kind of thing out. And I just kind of think the people that make it to sport, like after like 18, 19, like into their 20s and everything, like they've been the people that have kind of figured out those things that can seem so big at the time. But like, how many more girls and women could we have in sport if they were like given a bit more information, or felt like the conversation was like able to be had, like in terms of like periods and that. Like, there's reasons why people might not use tampons or don't like pads or whatever, and that's fine. But I think like it's so important to give people the information and let them, decide themselves, and not feel like embarrassed about like having your period, because people are so panicked sometimes, in terms of periods like leaking or something like that. And like realistically, like half the world get it. So like, what is the big deal if something like that happens? And that's just kind of some of the messages that we're trying to put out there. Like, let's just get on with it. It's a normal thing to happen,
Yeah, and like, back in the day, I mean, it's 20 years ago since I was at school, but girls would show up with notes from their mum saying, I'm not doing PE because I have a period. And it's like, it's quite literally the worst thing you can do is not move and not exercise and not keep your body moving. So I mean, I think the culture was to just be like, if the teacher saw the note, oh god, okay, go and sit over there.
And especially like PE teachers, like a lot of PE teachers, I like it has shifted since, but there's a lot of male PE teachers, and they see that and they go, oh god, I'm not dealing with that. Okay,
no problem. No, I had a female PE teacher who a lot of the time actually she would kind of question it and she would challenge that, but that was not the norm. Like, usually it was a case of, oh yeah, fine, sit over there. So it sounds like your page is more, it's more of a movement than just a news source.
No, that is the idea. Like, look, in terms of like increasing coverage, absolutely, but like what I want the end results to be is that there's more opportunity for girls and women in sport, and that people feel like they do belong, and that you're increasing the numbers in sport. It doesn't have to be high performance level, it doesn't have to be GA or camogie or soccer or athletics or whatever the mainstream sports might be considered. Like, go and find the sport that you like and enjoy it. And there's just so much, like I was saying, like the skills that you can get from it, the like relationships and friendships and everything that you can get from it. Like, there's so much that can be taken. Like the mental and physical health benefits of sport are not to be underestimated. Like, I don't have high board patients, so like I'm not really involved in those kind of sports, but like there are the sports that I find that I do enjoy. And like, I find running okay. There's loads of people I know that hate running. So go and try something else. Like, you will find something that you do enjoy,
Yeah. So when you talk about HerSport and you say we, how long did it take before you could afford to pay other people to contribute?
Like, to be honest, the team has really been running off like people that are looking for experience. Like, for like that was the kind of start of it. In terms of people that are in college and looking for internships, like passionate about sport and want to, interview athletes. Like, people are really interested in talking to athletes, getting to know them. Like, everybody wants to know, what's going on behind the scenes. So that was really the start. Like, I think from the very beginning, that opportunity was available. Like, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself, and to bring in, people that wanted that experience. And there's lots of people, like, in terms of the reporting and everything that we're doing, there's a standard of expectation of what we deliver, and like, definitely, like, we like evaluate everything that people are writing and like all that kind of stuff, like make sure that it's like good quality. But in terms of like the news, it's about delivering the news. That some of those more opinion pieces, not like someone can get their kind of creative flow going, I suppose, and try different things and explore. Like, there is room for that. But in terms of the reporting, like, you are reporting on an event, like, just like give the information, give the facts, and if it's presented well, it'll go well. And that's really what the starting point was. So have been really lucky to like have lots of people that are interested in doing internships with us and working on that basis. And then this year has been about looking at like the business structure and how everything's going to like move going forward. And the partnership with Lifestyle is like a massive thing for us in terms of like what we can do now, and really looking at the team and how we can build it out, and other things that we want to like achieve as well. Like, the two brands are going to work together to like talk about equality and to talk about they're talking about lifestyle and sports. So like every aspect of someone's life, like how you can just like encourage and empower women, and that's really like what we're trying to do. I know, yeah, you mentioned like in terms of like the reporting, and that is one side of it, but you know, really like empowering women in sport is like our tagline, and that is the end goal of what we want to do.
Okay, so you mentioned lifestyle, and that's a huge coup. You announced it in the last couple of weeks. They are your new partners. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's brilliant news. So how will that partnership work then? You know, obviously you said the two brands are going to work together to empower women and to get that message across. But are they backing you financially to do certain things?
Yeah. So basically, the partnership. There's a couple of different projects that we're going to work on together. There'll be a webinar coming up soon, which will be kind of talking about the relationship and exactly like why we have the relationship, what we want to achieve. And they're really about empowering women. They want to, in terms of like working with people, they want to work with athletes as well. So we'll be helping them in, promoting athletes, and they want to like. I think it's like doing what's right. It is actually giving the accurate depiction of what female athletes look like, as opposed to like people may be different shapes and sizes from different sports, and that's okay. And it needs to become like public. Like people need to know that that's what everybody can be different shapes and sizes and be involved in lots and lots of different sports. Like there's room for everybody. So we have a webinar talking about that. We have a shared ambassador, so Amy O'Donoghue who's an ambassador for both HerSport and Lifestyle. So she was very excited to see the two organisations come together. I think something that's also really exciting for us is like it's another Irish organisation, stepping forward, supporting what we're doing, backing what we're doing. So yeah, in terms of what we're doing, there'll be a couple of campaigns that we're going to do, and we'll be doing some different like awareness pieces and stuff throughout the year. So it's a year's relationship at the moment, and hopefully we'll look at maybe furthering that down the line, and obviously to see how the first 12 months go first. But there's some exciting things, and I think like it's just associating the two brands together, their audience becoming familiar with us, our audience becoming familiar with them. And I think it's really positive for their brand to be associated with an organisation that is all about equality and empowering women, and that's really what they want to, do and show that they're doing as well. So, really excited to get started. The two teams are working closely together in terms of the different bits and pieces that we're doing. So there'll be lots coming up over the next 12 months.
Brilliant! Congratulations. It sounds like it's the beginning of the next step. Like you're growing. I presume you're growing every year. You say you have you have your interns and that. Do you have staff writers as well, or do you have contributors that are like always paid, or what way does it break down?
Yes, that's the direction we're heading. So we have a number of people that are paid, and that's what the next year is about doing. Is about everybody that's on the team and people that have interned for us. We have been able, in terms of interns, offer experience, offer advice, like in terms of say my digital marketing experience. Like I talk to them about like how do they want to market themselves, like that kind of thing. So there's other I guess skills and benefits that I can offer them at that point. But there are people that we have worked with who have been with us for like a number of months that I obviously like want to support, and like people are like finishing college and that, and I'm like, okay, well, we want to have a position here for you. So that's really what we're doing now, is looking at the reality of it. Also like other other ways to make sure that everything is running. Like it has to be a sustainable business. So that's what this 12 months is about.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be brilliant to be able to have people on and everything up and running from a financial perspective in a more positive fashion, because like you said, in terms of like planning, yes, you do look at that, but particularly like even with COVID, marketing budgets and that decreased. People just stopped. They're like, okay, we're not really sure what we're doing right now, and that's what it was, And so in terms of things are coming back to life a bit more, I'd say over the last kind of 6 months, maybe 9 months even, and it's just about letting people know that we have a really good loyal audience to connect with, and people like really value what we have to say, and know that the people that we partner with that there's a reason that we partner with them, because we I'd be quite particular about who we do work with and making sure that they stand for what we stand for, that the two brands align. Have been approached by different organizations before, and kind of said, I'm not sure that's the right fit for us. I want to make sure that everything makes sense and that we are working towards a common goal.
Okay, so you mentioned your community and your followers,
Mhm.
and they're very loyal, and there's a lot of them. Like you've built up a huge community online in a relatively short space of time. Does that mean that you can start to generate income with advertising?
Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of the audience, like in January 2020, I think across all social media channels, it was like less than 5,000 people. And I think we're over 45,000 at the moment. So, I mean, and it's like Instagram is our strongest at the moment. We're heading towards 26,000. And with the different things that we're doing at the moment with lifestyle, we expect both our followings to grow over the next couple of weeks. So it'll be great to see that community just continue to build and people like really support what we're doing. What I actually find really interesting because like sometimes people say 25,000, you can see like there's accounts that have way more, but something in terms of like the engagement that we have, like the engagement that we get is way above industry average. Like we get a lot of likes on it, we get like lots of people engaging, comments. And something that we're doing with lifestyle at the moment is a campaign that's like show us your sport. And
Yeah.
people have been putting up like pictures of their sport, and there's just so many people have gotten involved, and everybody's like really passionate about it, and just like really getting involved and like want to show like the different sports that they're participating in. And there's been so many different sports that people are participating in, and it's great to be able, like, we're resharing them on our channels. It's great to be able to share with the audience like, oh well, these are all the sports that people are doing around the country and everything. So yeah, it's great, like the feedback that we get. Like I get lots of different athletes like messaging and saying like thanks so much for what you're doing, or even sometimes if you look at some of the interviews that we do, like at the end they're like, people are really genuine and say like thanks so much for like highlighting women in sport and like doing what you're doing. And I guess for like us it's kind of become normal, and you like sometimes you have to step back and say actually like we have created this massive community and people are really into it and really supportive of it. But yeah, like the activity is great. The community is great. I get like anyone from 14-year-olds to professional athletes messaging saying they really like what we're doing. So it's nice to get those messages. We should share them more because I think people would like to see the kind of positivity that we're getting as well.
Yeah, it's great to get that kind of endorsement.
Mm.
Sometimes Instagram and social media channels can be the exact opposite. They can just be trolling and stuff. Now I don't have,
Yeah.
thankfully, any experience of that, but I know, sometimes it's the exact opposite. So you're obviously getting the good end of the stick, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So just back to the advertising then, if you're getting all that engagement, that's what they look at, the engagement and the numbers, because to them, they're just a brand, and they may not, or they may support your message, but they're really just looking at your figures. And your figures are strong, your engagement is really good. So do you see yourself taking advertising and going down that route?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Do it?
Yeah, no, we are talking to different organizations now about doing different advertising campaigns. So yeah, we've worked with a couple organizations already in terms of advertising, and definitely over the next 12 months, like it, as I said, it's really about being a sustainable business. And so the partnership is great, and like we are delighted to have that, and to have the different projects that we're working on with lifestyle sports. But obviously we need to do some other things like in terms of advertising to make sure that we're generating enough revenue to pay the bills, pay the team, and all that type of thing. But yeah, I know like there's loads of different things that we can do, and like in terms of an organization, we're totally open-minded in relation to the type of campaign that we do. Like if somebody wants to do something different on like Reels or TikTok or something, like definitely like give us the ideas, and we'll come up with something. Like I'd say like no idea is a bad idea. While it might seem a little bit out there, like let's talk about it and figure out if it's something that can actually be done. So yeah, like there's loads of scope. And then there's opportunities to say like sponsor some of the different series that we do. So the podcast that myself and Joanna are in do, it's just sport, like there's opportunities to sponsor that. The period panel, we have actually recently just got a sponsor for that, which is brilliant as well. So we'll be able to talk about, like I started the period panel to just cover some of those topics, but now, and the kind of consistency, we were like wasn't able to be consistent because I had to focus on doing other things. But now that we have a sponsor with it, it means that I can continue to make sure that all of those kind of topics are discussed, and we can actually put more behind the period panel. And so yeah, it's really about like the opportunity to connect with our audience is massive. And like as I said, like everybody is so loyal. And then what it gives like us as an organization means that the financial backing, like we're there to like reinvest in some of the different projects that we want to do and push some of things like harder than we could if we weren't supported financially, basically.
Yeah.
And you know, the reality of it is, like, in terms of team and production and everything, like a lot of time and effort goes into you know, writing articles, promoting the articles, doing graphics. Like, people might think it all just kind of happens. It really doesn't. Like, some of it takes so long, and like even in terms of in terms of like videos and everything, like you're saying, like yourself, like you have to like do the editing, upload it, do like, there's just so much with it, and it doesn't always happen. So yeah.
Oh no, don't worry, I know.
Yeah,
I definitely know it doesn't just turn into a lovely video.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be lovely, and then you have all the technical difficulties that come along with it as well. So like, there's, you know, if the internet's down, we're like trying to upload a video, it just does not go anywhere. But
or if you're working from home and there's 2 other people using the Wi-Fi, uploading and downloading, like, I mean, that's just become the norm. Like, it can be a challenge. So it's a really exciting time for the brand, for the organization, because it sounds like, you know, you're about to take off onto the next level. Do you see, you know, good longevity in this project?
Yeah, I think, look, I am not naive in thinking that something like this is going to be around forever. The idea of what we're doing is to like raise the profile of women's sport, and like I'd love to see like more coverage of you know, women's sport across more media. Do you know what I mean? And that's something like it's an international problem. Like 4% of the sports coverage internationally goes to women in sport, and then it's been increased to 6% in Ireland. But like the participation in Ireland, like 40.8% of participants in sport in Ireland are female. So the numbers don't add up. And like one of the statistics that we looked at, and it is a 2019 number, but I think it was 64% of the international medals won that year were by the women. Then at the time it was 4% of the media coverage is what they received. So yes, what we're aiming for is more coverage, or like that it's the right proportional coverage, we'll say. You know, nobody's under any kind of illusion that it has to be 50-50. It has to just be proportional.
It just has to not be tokenism.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it has to not be. No female athlete wants to be put in the paper or on the website. Oh God, we have a quota to fill, and we have to put so it just proportional is the right word. You know, proportional to the success as well. You know, you're not going to report on every under 17s match. You know, senior international sport and senior intercounty sport, senior elite sport is the pinnacle. And if we are winning medals and we are winning matches and we are doing special things in those fields, then there's no question that they should be reported on, widely reported on. It's a bit murkier when you go into like, you know, under 19s, under 17s. It's more difficult because not only are you dealing with the fact that it's not maybe international or whatever, it's underage, and you know, it's just so much. It's just so difficult to get anything in. You have to get headlines. It needs to be worthy of a big headline, and exactly, of a story. And I think all athletes would agree with that as well.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, and what you're saying, like, unless it's a local paper or something, like that's fair enough.
Totally different. Yeah, no, totally different. Yeah.
But in terms of like your national media and stuff, like what you're saying, it has to be a story, and like it just costs for these things. So people thinking that, oh, you can just write about whatever story. Like if it's something like you're saying, like an under 19s match or something, and somebody's not there, like you have to send somebody out there to get the pictures, get the story, get whatever. Like, and it has to be worth putting in the paper. And I think that's what in terms of some of the media, like it is going to take time, like, you know, in terms of sponsorships and in terms of like, you know, financial backing and everything. Like you have to get bums and seats to go to some of these matches for a sponsor to warrant spending that money and understand that there is opportunity in women's sport. And in some sports, we are seeing changes, and it is going to take time. But yeah, in terms of like what we're like that is the business side of things realistically. But in terms of like what we are aiming for, I would love for HerSport not to be required. And if that happens, great. Do I see that changing in the next 5 years? No. So from my perspective, yes, at some stage, we would hope to be
obsolete.
Kind of closing down HerSport, or not closing it down, like joining it on to something else, that there's then men's and women's sports being covered. I don't know if we can have the men's sport on HerSport. We might have to rebrand or something, but something like that is the goal. But I don't see it changing in the next 5 years. And like, there's some things that I have seen where people are talking about changes in sport, and they think like this could be from 15, 20 years ago, and not that much has changed. So they're optimistic about it, hoping that things are going to change in 2, 3, 4 years. And then some of the stories are like still relevant now. So like it is taking quite some time. I think it will eventually change. And look, the place of women in society has changed over the last like 50, 60, 70 years. You know, in terms of sport, like it is getting there. Like we have to be realistic in terms of like the place of women in society, essentially. Do you know, like if you think about like work, if you think about like family and like the role of women, like things have changed and are, I guess, more equal now. But in terms of sport, like when was the LGFA founded? Not that long ago. Like I talked to my granny about participating in sport. Like she's, to be fair, nearly 90, and she was like, "Oh no, we just used to run or like run around and we played camogie, but nobody kept score. Nobody cared, but they were involved in supporting like the men's like game football and everything. Like they were involved in that, but there wasn't interest, or it didn't seem like." I asked my granddad, he had sisters, and I said, "Did none of your sisters participate in sport?" Because he was mad into cross country and GA, and he was like, "Oh yeah, they played with us like when they were kids." And he said, "Oh, but when they went into bloom, you know, that was kind of when they stopped." And I was like, "All right." So it was once girls hit puberty, that was kind of it. And we have moved on from that, and people are pushing for more. No, not naive in thinking that it's all going to change overnight. And I understand the business side of things in terms of, you know, the numbers have to be there for businesses to support it and everything. But it is changing, and yeah, eventually, hopefully, we will be obsolete. But yeah, no, definitely look, like lifestyle, see the opportunity with us and like what we're doing and the rate of growth that we've had. You know, the community have massively grown, and like we were saying, the engagement rate is really, really strong. Which is something that we're really proud of in terms of like what we're putting up there and some of the topics that we cover, and the website views have, you know, continued to go up. You know, the target that we have this year over last year, I think it's double what we're aiming for, and that will continue to be like that for the next few years. Like there's big goals in there, and we're really grateful to Lifestyle to work with us on this and to believe in what we believe in and really see that there is opportunity there. You know, I've talked to other organizations as well, and you know, I can see the whole picture, and I understand if someone isn't living it every day, like you're trying to talk to them about like how much of a massive opportunity there is. And it's true, like, you know, more people are you know, becoming invested in it, like are becoming more aware of it. Also in like the way that we present content, like we present it from like lots and lots and lots of different sports. So I get people telling me like, "Oh, I actually know more about women's sport now than I do men's," because it's all in one place. It's not, you know, just GA, rugby and football, or like, you know, sports that people are used to seeing lots and lots about. You know, we had luge in there, you know, we've had skiing, we have rowing, we've like badminton, like loads of different things. We're trying to cover as much as we possibly can. Yes, we work closely with the NGBs and that to get some of the press releases and stories and athletes and everything to cover. The Instagram takeovers over the last 12 months were huge. Like people really like seeing the behind the scenes. I think it's really interesting. I feel like we've created a community of like the elite athletes around the country, because some of when Elsa Desmond does luge, and when she was on doing her takeover, Margaret Kremen from rowing had actually messaged and said like, "Oh, like I really like this takeover or something," and she was learning. And I was like, I was wondering at the time, does Elsa know that like I mean now Margaret's going to the Olympics, you know? And I was like, I like we're connecting elite athletes from different sports and creating that kind of community as well, which is quite cool. But yeah, people are being exposed to more, and that's really what the aim is.
Okay. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a real success story, and it's going to go from strength to strength. So congratulations, particularly with the partnership with Lifestyle recently. It's brilliant. Before we finish up, do you have any advice for people who might be thinking of doing something similar, whether it's like, you know, I mean, not in women in sport because you have that covered, but you know, if there's something that maybe they have, you know, a passion for, I don't know, American baseball or whatever, or the NBA or whatever it is. And we saw there's an Irish NFL show has started up in the last 12 months as well, and they have just skyrocketed. And we'll be speaking to them on this series as well. But For people who have this inkling that they want to do something and maybe they're doing a completely different job at the moment, how do you throw the shackles off? What's your biggest piece of advice?
I guess you have to understand, like, is there a market for it? Like, you have to be realistic about it. Is there a community of people that are interested in it? How are you going to monetize it and turn it into something that's sustainable? If it's something that you want to do as like a hobby, like there's loads of room for that, and if you're not going to necessarily like walk out in your job. But if you want to leave your job for doing something like this, you have to have a business model in mind. So for me, like I was always thinking partnerships, I was always thinking advertising. In terms of like advertising, yes, I understand the type of, you know, business model that is, and I have backup plans. So make sure that like what you're doing, you can see how it's going to generate revenue, to do what you want to do and achieve what you want to achieve. It's all well and good to say, oh, just try it and off you go. Like, no, like have some sort of like understanding of how it could work. If you can see it working, I mean, talk to people around you. Do they understand it as well, or is it something that you completely like concocted in your head? Like bounce ideas, talk to as many people as you possibly can. And the amount of people that I've like emailed and talked to from, like I have understanding of what I want to do and like what I want to achieve. Do I know every step of the way to get there? No. So I talk to people that do know or have experience in, you know, in different positions, or like if I'm going to be talking to organizations about something specifically, I might talk to somebody in a different organization, in a different industry, and say, okay, well, what are they looking for? Or like, what do they want from me? Like, talk to as many people as you can to kind of understand the industry, understand what you're trying to do. And if it's something that seems like it might work, then I mean, try it. But yeah, there's like, yeah, you have to understand, like, is it really a realistic goal, I suppose.
Yeah. Understand the market, understand that you don't have all the answers, and don't be afraid to go in search of them. I think that's really sound advice. Niamh Tallon, thank you so much. Founder of HerSport. I think we'll be seeing and hearing a lot from you over the next few years, and I wish you the very best with the new partnership with Lifestyle Sports and everything else. It's going to be a busy summer with the Olympics and everything. So yeah, happy promoting women in sport, and thanks a million for joining me on Life in Sport.
Thanks a million for having me, delighted.